Home the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Move for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Woo!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo, living in Kingston, Ontario. Flying solo once again here on today's episode. Lots to get to, though. Okay, so don't fret. Lots to get to. College tournaments happening this past weekend, and lots of tournament action happening both outside and inside. Okay. Before we get to the news, just a quick little update. I was in the United States of America on the weekend. Had a chance to attend West Point. For those that don't know, that's where the United States, one of their military academies, the Army one, is there. They also have Navy, which is in Annapolis, Maryland, and then Air Force, which is in Colorado. So got to travel with the men's volleyball team. They played in a one-day tournament against Army, Navy, and Coast Guard. And got to visit New York City as well. So that was a pretty fun time out in the United States. Happy to be back. The weather was actually pretty good on Sunday. Wasn't great on Saturday. Currently, as I'm recording, I can see kind of snow flurries, but a little like snow rain out here in Kingston. So hopefully most of the snow is gone. We can get ready to play outside. I know tryouts are happening in many different places soon or have happened. I believe some of the Ottawa teams like Stella has had theirs. So some people choosing to maybe hold it inside, some doing a little mix of both. So lots going on there. And yeah, I'll keep you updated with my own Frisbee journey. That will take place later on. But anyways, we're going to get to the news. Big tournament happened. Northwest Challenge. We're going to talk about it. Carousel City Classic. We're going to head to the news right now and talk about it.
We now have breaking news.
So first tournament we're going to discuss is Northwest Challenge. For those that don't know, that's a pretty big West Coast tournament. And for a lot of teams, that's their final tournament of the season before conferences, regionals, and hopefully, if you're lucky, nationals. Okay. So UBC, we're going to talk about them first. They went as the number 1 seed. You got the hype. They followed that up and showed it with a 2-0 start in pool play, 13-3 over Texas, and then a 13-10 win over BYU. And BYU, of course, playing on Friday and Saturday, throwing a little wrench in the schedule, but all good. Happy for them to be there. UBC then blitzed Oregon, taking half 7-0, and they won 13-4. If you go watch the film, which I highly recommend, you can go check it out. You're not yours truly, not me, but co-host truly, Danny, probably a little golf swing selly at the end. A couple players doing that as well. So I don't know if that's like a thing they have, but a little selly at the end. We do like that. With that quarterfinals victory over Oregon, that's what that matchup was. They then took on Colorado, the eventual winners. So if you follow along, this game was not streamed from my knowledge. There's Twitter though. You can check that out. So Ultiworld Live had it tweeted out. So looks like it was on serve. Colorado taking half 8-7. Back and forth throughout the second half. And UBC, trying to power out those D-lines. We saw that as well. A previous tournament that was live streamed. I believe it was Stanford Invite. You could see them as well powering up the D-line, trying to get breaks against Washington. We talked about that before. So same strat as they get ready for their, push into the postseason here. Colorado does get a break in the second half, and that's enough to win it by 2. So they take the game 13-11. But don't fret. UBC able to then take down Stanford, a team I believe is going to be qualifying for nationals out of the Southwest. The Southwest got a lot of bids out here from what I hear. So they win 13-6, take third. And this won't be the last time you hear about UBC. So we're going to have them on at some point. Hopefully Danny, but also some of the players themselves before all is said and done for their season. So stay tuned for that. The other Canadian team out there was UVic. So they were the 13th seed, third in their pool. Before we even get to talking about how they did, got a chance to message them and get some more info on why they were only playing Friday and Saturday. I talked about how we were going to figure that out, and we did. So turns out what happened was they wanted to get some games in to make sure they hit the required amount, which some of you don't know. You have to have a certain amount of games. I believe it's 10 sanctioned games. So they talked to the tournament director, and they got back to them and offered them to play against BYU on Friday and a few games on Saturday. They showed their SBI results. They showed what's up. They showed where they're in the Ultra World Power Rankings. But hey, what ended up happening was they couldn't get a spot in Sunday. Not enough field space, they said. But then 5 days before the tournament starts, they offered them a spot, but they didn't have the hotels. They didn't get the schedule right in terms of their end. So then what happened was they couldn't do Sunday. So they only ended up playing Friday and Saturday. Definitely with the switch to the bracket style play, they definitely could have fit them in because tournaments have done that with uneven schedule with BYU, so it's definitely possible. Either way, spoke to Bryn, and Bryn said that they were super grateful just to be able to play in the tournament. Disappointing they couldn't be in the full thing, of course, but you get the reps in, you get to play a good BYU team, so that's fun. So we're going to talk about how they did. They took a tough 10-9 loss to Western Washington, and then a 9-7 loss to BYU on Friday. You got to be feeling good with the close results, though. You can watch the BYU game. If you get a sub, do it, and you can watch the games. BYU was actually down, so UVic took the lead, able to take half 6-5, but then BYU scoring 3 straight, taking an 8-6 advantage, and UVic would go down 9-7. Was told it wasn't too windy, but it definitely looked cold, though, and I was assured that was the case. Gloves weather, as they call it. That was more so in the first game, but still looked, if you look on the sidelines of the stream, or now it's the video, it's not live anymore, of course, you can see people in jackets and things like that. So it's definitely cold out there, okay? Then they went 1-2 in pool play, matching up with who I mentioned already, Stanford, as a potential, I'm going to say, national qualifier, and obviously Colorado as well. Tough losses there, but rebounded with a 13-7 win over their regional rival. I believe that was Utah. So they were able to bounce back, and of course, I wish I could say they had a chance to avenge some of their losses on Sunday, but unfortunately, that is not the case. So as we mentioned, their tournament ends there, but playing BYU tight, I think, is super great for them and bodes well for what they hope to do in the quote-unquote playoff season, bid watch, all that good stuff. But right now, as the time of this recording, UBC is second in Frisbee rankings. Northwest has 5 bids right now. That includes BYU, of course, UVic earning one of them. Okay, so things will change if BYU doesn't play conferences. It's kind of complicated, but yeah, if BYU doesn't play, I think something happens to a bid. I'm not totally sure on that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there with BYU. Now, another college tournament we talked about last week, Carousel City Classic. Love that. We're actually going to have 2 people on today to talk about it in the main event. So that's going to be right after this news segment. We're going to talk to Desmond Staples, captain of Ottawa, Tynan Peterson, captain of McGill. They're going to discuss how the tournament went. I'll just give you the results, and then they'll go into further detail, okay? So Ottawa goes 3-0 in pool play. 40-17 point diff. Did I say that right? Big point diff right there. And they were able to kind of just roll over, okay? I mean, I have to say it that way because when you have a point diff like that, it's just, you're showing your stuff, okay? That's really all I can say about that. Closest game was 12-8 to Binghamton, the host. Then they win 15-5 over Lehigh, and a close 12-10 win over Cornell in the semis to make it to the final. McGill goes 2-1. They actually lost to Harvard, the last seed of the tournament, to start this, or last seed of their pool, sorry, not the tournament. 10 seed, last seed of Pool C. They actually lose to them to start the day, but they rebound. They show what's up. They're able to bounce back, taking out Rochester and then Lehigh to finish second in their pool. They defeat Case Western 13-7 in quarters, and then 15-11 over a team that made nationals, a few years ago now in Rutgers, but they take them down 15-11. And then McGill, you get the W I told you to be hyped up on. I'm hyped up on all the Canadian teams as they play the U.S. series, and 2 Canadian teams in the final. McGill wins 15-8, and we'll hear more about how that game and tournament went in the main event. But before we do that, we're just going to quickly talk about the Frisbee rankings with those 2 teams. So Ottawa making the debut here, 23rd. That's actually pretty cool. They're right behind Michigan and Georgia, and Ohio State and Brown. But they're not going to have the 10. I hate to, spoiler alert here. They're not going to have the enough sanctioned games to actually count. So unfortunately, that won't count. Okay. But right now they're ranked 23rd. Pretty cool. McGill sitting there at 34. So they moved up many spots. 19, according to this site here, Frisbee Rankings. And they're actually right below Victoria. So kind of fun, a little Canada sandwich out there. And so that's your Frisbee Rankings hashtag bid watch. You'll hear about that in the main event, which we're going to jump to right now after the break. We're going to talk to them. And then second part, going to preview 2 tournaments happening this weekend. I guess 2.5 you can call it, because 2 of them are happening in one. C4UC, and then there's the juniors one. C4JUC, I think maybe is how they're going to call it. And then also Northwest Challenge Men's. So stay tuned for all of that after the break.
Spring college season is here and the warm weather is on its way. That means it's reversible season. Breakmark is giving away free reversibles for teams that order a bundle. With prices starting at just $75, it's the best way to have your team looking game ready this spring. And reorders get a 20% discount. Get started today at breakmark.com.
You've reached one of our main events for today. Got some special guests in the house, and we're going to talk the Carousel City Classic. There's a CCC that happens in the fall in Georgia. This one happens in Binghamton, New York, so a little different. Got some Canadian teams in the finals, and we got 2 players and captains that were on those teams that met in the final. So Desmond Staples, Tynan Peterson. How you guys doing?
I'm good, Theo. How are you doing today?
I'm just it's a work day out here, but we got to make time for the people's champs, the 2 Canadian teams out here that everyone wants to hear from. So I'm going to do a quick intro, get you to say where you've played, give a little background for the audience here. So Tynan, let's start with you.
Sure. I started in Ottawa. I'm from Ottawa initially. Started on Blaze, which is the C junior team.
Oh man.
And worked my way up to Ignite. Ended up playing 2 years of Ignite. And then I'm at McGill now. So been playing with Mutt. This is my 4th year, kind of including COVID. So I'm just finishing up my 4th year of school right now. And this is our second kind of USAU season that we're in the middle of right now. And this year is my first year captaining Mutt.
Congrats, bro.
So, thank you.
Yeah, you're going to notice some vibes over here. They're going to explain why in a second. But Desmond, I'll let you introduce yourself as well.
Cool. So I'm Desmond. I started playing, I guess the first time I ever started playing was back in high school with Tynan, which was pretty sick. And then I played a year of Scorch, also with Tynan, Ignite as well. And then moved up to Ottawa, played, I don't know, I've been playing forever now. My teammates call me the old guy, which kind of sucks when you're 22. But so, but it's been great. I've been captain for, I think, 3 years now. And it's been just great to see the program grow and see our success move up. So, yeah, it's been great this past year as well.
Nice.
And I didn't know this before we scheduled this interview, that they actually are like tight friends that played together.
Yeah,
I didn't know that because when they got on the call,
man.
they were the way they were talking, it was like they knew each other. Normally our guests don't do that, so I'm already feeling the vibe. So anyways, I want to know, because for your individual team, why you decided to go to this tournament. It's a random tournament that I never heard of until I got word from you both that you were attending it. Mm-hmm. So Desmond, let's start with you. Why did you, Ottawa, decide to go to the tournament?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this tournament has been, believe it or not, it's been 3 years in the making. Because originally back in COVID year, Simon Walker, who's Mr. U Ottawa, he signed us up for a couple US tournaments and they got canceled because of COVID. And we were all depressed and it was so sad. And then whatever. Next year happened. We didn't do any. And then this year we were about to sign up for No Sleep Till Brooklyn. And like everyone was stoked. We were going to go down to New York City. Like it was going to be the best. And then we missed the registration deadline. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. I was so sad about that. Because how they do it is you don't have to pay when you register. You just register and pay later. And we didn't get that. So missed that one. And then my guy, Luke Smith from SUNY Binghamton, emails me. And he's like, what's up, you Ottawa? Come play at this tournament that you've never heard of. And the rest is history.
And how did he reach out to you? Just through Instagram DM or what?
He emailed us. He messaged us on Instagram. I think he hit up our Facebook too. There must have been some like coordination between the No Sleep Till Brooklyn organizers and this, because he had all our info. So it was great, honestly.
Sweet.
Oh yeah.
Tynan?
Yeah. So I don't know. There's a bit of backstory to this. It started earlier in the fall when we were trying to like plan out our spring season. Because we were going to go to Centex initially again, which is just like super fun tournament.
That's why we had you on last time.
But the flights were super expensive this year. So we spent like 2 months like tracking them and they would not budge. So we like pulled the team and we were like, would you guys go to this at this price point? And the consensus was no. So by that time it was like late November or something. And it was like too late to register for Florida warm up, which would have been a long shot anyway. But man. We were trying to shoot our shot. We applied for Smoky Mountain Invite and got rejected.
Yeah, that's not gonna. I hate to say that's not gonna work out for you.
So we're trying to play in these big tournaments. So then we're like, okay, Easterns, let's apply for that. We apply. We get into Eastern qualifiers, obviously, and then that was kind of so. At the start of the spring season, we're like, okay, we'll go to EQs and we'll either go to Easterns, or if we don't make it, we'll do something local and nearby. And then this kind of just ended up being the best combination of like local and decent competition and like good timing in the season.
Yeah,
so
us too. Because people don't want to go that far, for us at least. So we wanted to find a tournament that wasn't too far, but also had decent teams. And we're looking at some other ones, and there's not a lot in the northeast, sort of like upstate New York area that's like decent teams. So, but we were really lucky to find this one because it was still good,
Yeah.
Well, for Tynan and McGill, you get to kind of imagine what it'd be like to be in the Metro East or the Metro Least, as I like to call it. So one can dream because you're in the New England region. For those that didn't know, so you have a little bit of some stiffer competition out there, but. Moving on into getting ready for the tournament, I know Ottawa, you out here playing the 4 circuit, right? Mm-hmm. You're out here playing the 4 circuit.
Yeah.
Were you preparing for had you had any outdoor practices before this tournament, or was it just 4s indoors?
We had neither. We had indoors 7s practices. That's all we did. We don't practice 4s at all. We were trying our best though to get everyone out, but we just we're having a lot of availability issues with the guys. So we really only ever had like 5 or 6 guys out at practice, and then not even all of them could go to this tournament. So, it was sort of anyone's guess how we were going to do. Like first time playing outdoors since we played Manitoba, like not a lot of chemistry, just sort of relying on what we built in the fall. So yeah, I mean, I think Luke, our coach Luke especially, he was like really unsure how we were going to do. Like there's basically a 50-50 chance whether we were about to get smoked or just roll these guys. So yeah, we sort of saw everything this weekend.
McGill, are you out there practicing in Montreal? I know it gets a little snowy out there.
It does, dude. I spent so long looking for practice spots and like absolutely nothing. Every single indoor turf field is booked up. This is in like October, November. I was looking, fully booked. I was looking off island, like an hour away, still like crazy, and the prices are crazy as well. Anyways, we ended up finding dome time through UGM, which is like the Montreal Ultimate League, and we're practicing once a week on like a 5s field beside. It's funny, it's beside like Iris, the Royal, and Ensom, which are like 3 of the top Montreal teams, and then there's us in there, so it's pretty funny.
You guys are good.
But yeah, so just once a week since the start of January, basically. And then we're gonna move outside ideally next week. So yeah, that's our practice schedule. And then we've got workouts with our strength and conditioning coach, JP Viopel, which is sweet. He's
with Mud as well.
He's with Matt, yeah.
Okay.
And he does stuff for the Royal as well.
Yeah.
So he's sweet. He's been helping us out. And then we're doing like track workouts as a team once a week in the McGill field house as well. So yeah.
Damn, that's way more hardcore.
Decent schedule.
Yeah. Wow.
I've heard comments from people that say, Theo, you talk a lot about McGill, especially in the spring. But hey, there's a reason why. They're putting in the work out here and they're trying to go all these tournaments. Ottawa doing the same. I heard some through the grapevine, some other teams going to be making their way to conferences. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But let's talk about the tournament. For those listening or watching, you would have heard me talk about this in the news already. But talk about how it went from your perspective. Don't necessarily have to go game by game, but maybe talk some themes that happened for your team and kind of what you were seeing. So Desmond, we'll start with you, Ottawa.
Yeah, sure.
What was happening for you? What was happening?
Well, I mean, first of all, let's say I've never been to a tournament where like day one, it's like 1 degree, pouring rain, like winds, it's like 60 kilometers an hour. And then day 2, you get a sunburn. I'd never experienced that in my life. So that was kind of crazy, first of all. The other is like, we never played against these Metro East teams. We're always hearing about them, like, oh, you guys should go play Metro East, like it's so bad or whatever. I did not realize how bad these guys actually were. Let me just say, like, when they say Metro East, like they are not kidding around. Like I couldn't believe it. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. Everyone's super nice, but yeah, it was like it was a crazy experience just to, you smoke some guys, you have some close games, and then, sort of get smoked by McGill in the final, but we'll just leave that to the side. Anyway, it was a lot of fun overall.
Dude, but like your score lines from day one were so nuts. And you guys were
they were pretty nuts. The algorithm did not know what to do with us after this weekend, yeah.
Well, they put you like 20th after Saturday or something.
Really? We're 23rd now.
Yeah, after Sunday, which is still pretty crazy.
You need the sanctioned games. That's what you need. So
true.
I think this is the last regular season weekend, if I'm not mistaken. So I think you're running out of sanctioned game time. So it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. But all I'm going to say is, Desmond, what you just said, it's going to be used on a soundbite from one of these Metro East teams when they make nationals.
It's true.
Yeah, you better watch out. Is all I'm
just
saying.
telling the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. And McGill, like I said, McGill, you wish you were not in the New England region, but hey, unless you relocate, that's what it's going to be. But how did the tournament go for you?
It was good. We lost our first game to Harvard, who's in our region and our conference, actually. So that was a bit tough. I mean, they're honestly better than they were last year. And they had this Chain Lightning guy who kind of balled on us a little.
Tom Tillett?
No.
Okay.
I don't think he's universally eligible anymore,
but yeah, the rest of Saturday was fun. Kind of playing in the mud, and then I'm so thankful they changed the venue for Sunday, because I was not ready to go back to. And it's actually funny because for Sunday morning quarters, we were on turf, and then if you lost your quarters, you had to go back to the mud.
Yeah.
So we're very thankful that we won our quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, the rain, it was awful, Theo. It was horrible.
Yeah. Well, avoiding the mud, it sounds like good motivation, but I want to press in a little bit into the semis matchups, because you talked about the score lines being a bit wider in the pool play, but looking at the score lines here, McGill, you defeat Rutgers 15-11, and Desmond, Ottawa beats Cornell 12-10. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of a tighter matchup. Can you talk a little bit about the semifinal and what you saw from Cornell that you didn't see necessarily from these other teams?
I mean, the thing with Cornell, they had clearly much stronger throws, I'd say. That was the main difference we saw from like some of the other Metro East teams, like Syracuse, for example, versus Cornell. Their whole team could really throw, and in the wind too was something that we were seeing. It was like that Sunday morning. I mean, Saturday too, but Sunday morning the wind was really picking up. So that was something that played well for them. I think we actually went down in that game just like we did to McGill. We went down 2-0, I want to say. And so it was a bit of a battle back. And then once we sort of got in our rhythm and, went up a bit, we just kept holding, and they couldn't really get much going on us against our I say O-line, but we had 13 players, so people get injured, like everyone's playing everything. But yeah, their throwing for sure was a lot better than some of the other teams.
And in the preview, I talked about Rutgers being a team that had made nationals all the way back in 2019, a little bit ways ago, but maybe they still have some players from that team, or at least they have the legacy of being there. So for McGill, what was it like playing Rutgers in the semis?
Yeah, it was really cool. They also had like some really talented throwers that we hadn't seen before. And they also, I was talking to Logan from Ottawa before the game a bit, and he was telling me about how they were very handler heavy.
Yeah.
And he was not wrong. Like they were moving it real quick in the red zone, punishing us for small mistakes. And then they also just had some sweet hucks. They weren't very big, but they would just like put them like OI to the back corner, like against Rory and like Calvin, like some tall guys, but they were shooting really accurately. So yeah, they were definitely really strong. And the wind got pretty insane in that game, so it was definitely a bit more of a huck fest than before. And I think
little huck and pin, it sounds like, right? Or no?
maybe a little.
Not really. I mean, they connected. We played Rutgers too. They were connecting on their shots.
They were, yeah. And then they had a bunch of guys who. It's funny. They had a bunch of guys who played club with Rory on GSU. It's Garden State. It's really? Funny because they have that's like the Gucci tracksuit that Roy always wears. So they were wearing the same thing. It was funny. Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah, the semis take place now. It's the final. You got two Canadian teams out there, pretty fun. I gotta remember this. Did you play each other at nationals in the fall?
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
And so Desmond, this is an unplanned question here, but Desmond, tell us how it went in the fall, and then you can share your perspective on the final. I know it doesn't go your way this time around.
In the fall, so we played them 3 times last fall in total. Once at Easterns, we smoked them. No big deal. Once, no, I'm playing. It was close. And then once in pool play, right, Tynan? Pool play?
Yep.
Yeah, and they had this crazy huck and pin going. No matter how many Ds we got, we would hit it. It would go right to their guy. Hit it 2 times, go to this other guy. They just always had it. So that sucked, and we lost to them in pool play. And then we matched up in semis. It was 9-6 for McGill. They were all doing their nice cheer, and we were and Luke was like, "Guys, listen, get a grip." And so yeah, we ended up winning. It was 9-6. We ended up winning 10-9. Haunted McGill forever with that one. But then they got their revenge on this weekend, I guess, if you want to count CCC as a revenge tour. Go ahead.
We totally did, man. We kind of smoked you this
I know, you guys were going hard.
We wanted that. We wanted that revenge.
I'm sure.
But yeah.
So, yeah, the final, you said Ottawa goes down 2-0 there. Desmond, so how did you try to get yourself? Did you say something to the team or Luke, or what was the messaging to try to get yourselves back in the game?
What, in the fall or in this one?
In the final of CCC.
Oh, yeah. We went down 4-0 to these guys. Actually, yeah, it was bad. I think they took half 8-3. I want to say
8-2.
Right? That sounds okay. Something like
8-2?
that. Let's say 8-3. Anyway, we were trying, man. I was just talking to the guys, trying to get them hyped up. We had, other people trying to motivate. With some guys, it's their last year with Ottawa. Like Devon, for example, he was trying to hype the guys up. Luke, was in there. We were trying to do everything we could, but honestly, we just didn't have the juice in that game. Going down in those conditions with 13 guys is just, we just sort of ran out. And then with that low of a roster, if you go down, it's hard to come back. You might be able to go up with energy at the start, but the later the game goes, you just can't power line as hard. And so McGill really just, started strong and outlasted us in that one.
How many people did McGill send out to this tournament there?
I think we had 20. Ish. Yeah. So definitely more legs.
And how did the final go? Yeah. And how did it go from your perspective as a captain for McGill?
I mean, we definitely...
But easy?
I mean, it was pretty clear, we wanted the win. We wanted our revenge for sure.
Well said.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole lots of motivation from the winter is coming from that semifinal loss, you know. So the opportunity to play them again is like, you know, we had to seize it. And then I mean, we came out with momentum. We obviously had lots of energy. The first few points were like tons of turnovers, which I think kind of sucked the wind out of you guys a little.
Yeah, big time.
Like, you know, getting scored on after like 5 turnovers apiece like sucks. You have to go back out and play O again, and it's like super windy and tough to score. So yeah, I think that definitely gave us an advantage, and we definitely clearly had more legs in that game. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what's really funny to me is like the CCC finals, 2 Canadian teams. I think that's amazing, first of all. But we were talking about this off air here, about some of the rumblings about Canadian teams making their way down. So we're not privy to that. So you're going to tell the Huckin audience what people were saying about the Canadian teams out here. So Desmond, what were you hearing down on the boots on the ground at the tournament? Yeah. What were they saying about Canadian teams, Canadian Frisbee?
I mean, honestly, like everyone was just nice. That's the first thing I want to say. Like it was just, you know, it was just great to have games against all these American teams that like we'd never seen them before. They never seen us. Like probably it was a bit standoffish when, you know, you come in as like the 1 seed and they've probably never even heard of your city. So, you know, but like as the games went on, everyone was super cool. Like, you know, they had a bunch of weird cheers, guys pulling their pants down and stuff. I don't know. It's kind of weird down in the Metro East, but it was just like, it's just great to meet all these new people that we never would have ever played against.
Yeah, my question is, because I played some American tournaments, and one of the things that the teams like to do is sing the Star Spangled Banner before the game. Did that happen at all? Did that happen?
No, that did not happen. I mean, the closest thing, I guess, to that was like before, like on the drive down, our coach Luke was, you know, driving us down, and you know, he's from Binghamton, or he's spent a bit of time living there, so he's like familiar with Binghamton and like the region and the ultimate down there. And he was saying like, guys, listen, like every one of these teams, there's always some dude named like Joystick or D-Rob or B-Rob or something. And I kid you not, like it was not even the game didn't even start yet. It was the warm-ups. And this guy on Syracuse launches a monster huck in their warm-up, and everyone's like, way to go, D-Rob. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that it was like the game didn't even start and it already happened. So that was crazy.
That's funny. Actually, Case Western Reserve sang the national anthem before our game, before our quarters.
The Fighting Gobies, yeah.
They did it at EQs too. We played them at EQs, and we countered with the Canadian national anthem. But
nice,
not this time. Not this time. We were locked in this time. So yeah, it's funny.
Any rumblings from your end, from McGill? Did anyone say anything to you? What'd you hear out there?
No, me personally, Solomon was saying someone asked him what they put in the water up here to make us so good, which is funny. But no, I haven't heard much. But yeah.
Well, I mean, if they're asking you about the water, that's already like a good sign. So I always say Canadian teams, you should go out. I don't know if it's too late to sign up for conferences. It might be, but do it for next year is all I'm saying. Yeah. Go sign up and play these tournaments. And so speaking of, this will be our last question here. Rest of the season, Ottawa, is there anything on the docket here, or are you hanging up the cleats until the summer when you all go tour and play club?
Yeah, for us right now, we got no competitions left. We got some practices, and these days I'm just sort of working the phones, doing some recruiting, like some scouting. Yeah, there might be, maybe lefty handler from Toronto that might be joining us next year. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll leave that for the audience. Maybe, some righty cutter from Ottawa. You never know. So, we're just working the phones these days, getting ready for next year.
Hell yeah.
Sounds like a GM. Yeah, I like it.
I'm cooking these days.
If you were a GM, I know you like ball. So, if you were a GM in the NBA, who are you? Are you Masai or are you somebody else?
I'm whoever is getting LeBron, man. That's what I focus my team around one guy. You just need one superstar these days. LeBron's my guy. That's all I'm going for.
All right, sounds good. McGill, you're not hanging up the cleats, correct?
Absolutely not. We're we're shooting our shot for nationals this year. So next up is like the series, conferences, regionals, nationals. We're kind of on the lookout for that 4th New England bid. I was checking the rankings after last weekend. Brown is like 18th, I think, which is like one spot out of bid earning range. And they're playing at Easterns this coming weekend. So we're kind of crossing our fingers for them that they do well. We're on bid watch, exactly. Anyway, so obviously, like, we'd still be kind of poised to steal a bid. We got UMass, who's ranked 1 right now. Vermont's up there, and Tufts is also earning a bid for New England. So if Brown could get a 4th, that'd be a crazy regionals to go to. And then conferences coming up too. I was checking for the dates, and our conference and our region are the only 2 in the whole country to not have the date announced yet.
Oh man,
which is
it's not
a
locked
little bit
in.
lame.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all we got on the radar.
Well, I mean, that's all you got. You're hoping for nationals. We're hoping for more
come on
Canadian
now.
teams this year. So I know your experience at regionals last year going to give you some motivation, and also you're going to know some of these teams because you played regionals last year in a tough regional. All these teams are still just as good. So wishing the best of luck to both of your teams. I want to see potentially a McGill Ottawa final in the fall.
That'd be cool.
Maybe,
I heard Queens was cooking something up
So,
this year, though. We'll have to watch out for them.
I've heard that as well, but we're going to save that for a rumor mill podcast if we ever have one. But any final words of wisdom, any shout outs you maybe want to shout out, say hi to your mom or whoever. I'm going to give you the chance right now. So Desmond, who do you want to shout out?
Who do I want to shout out? I want to shout out our coach, I guess, Coach Luke. Honestly, like past 2 years, he basically took our entire program from never making D1 to, making Div 1, finished last. That was lame. And then, all the way up to a silver medal. So, Luke's been really integral to our success. So like we couldn't have done it without him. So Coach Luke.
You're welcome. Yeah, for me, I gotta give my shout out to Hayden. He's got that knee injury that took him out for our season this year, but he's still sticking around, coming to every practice. Was in crutches for like the first 2.5 months, and he's basically acting as a coach for us now, which is like super sweet. We love to have him around. He's like insanely smart, and honestly, he's been one of the big catalysts behind our US series participation. So being from Texas and all, so we're lucky to have him.
Nice. And he's got the best drip in the game, man. Those sunglasses are iconic. I can't lie.
Calvin's got the
Calvin's
sunglasses
there,
too. I know
Hayden,
he breaks out the Sunny G's as well.
That guy's
So
looking fresh.
So coaches, we always appreciate coach shout outs because they do a lot that's kind of under the scenes as well. So thank you two for coming on. I know these two are big fans of the pod, longtime listeners, kind of first time caller situation. So if your team does well again, maybe we'll have you on another time. So thank you both for coming on, and wish you the best of luck, not just in the spring for you, McGill, but both teams coming in the fall of 2023. So stay tuned for the rest of the Huckin audience. I'm going to talk C4UC is coming up. That's a pretty fun tournament. And also Northwest Challenge for the men's side. So some West Coast teams going to be out there. We're going to get to that after this break.
Thanks, Theo.
This is Nick McFadden from the University of Manitoba Open Team, your 2022 C4UC Division 1 Open Champions. And you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right. Second main event. Thank you for sticking around. We got Northwest Challenge coming up for you. Men's division, a little bit of I don't want to say smaller tournament, but when people think of Northwest Challenge, or at least when I do, I think about the women's tournament. But there's men's tournament as well. So 12 teams, 4 pools of 3. Contrasted to the format that we saw with Carousel City Classic, I still am surprised that they had 4 pools or 3 pools of 4 instead of 4 pools of 3. That makes your quarters set up a little bit easier. I understand that it gets you less games. I get that. But anyways, that's a tournament format. UBC, number 1 spot. So they give the number 1 spot to women's team and the men's team as well here. UBC in a pool with Whitman and Dartmouth. And I'm just going to go on a limb and say I don't really see them having, I don't want to jinx it here, but I don't see them having trouble with either squad in their matchup. And Pool D, Victoria UVic out in the 5 seed. They're the second team in their pool, sitting right below the 4 seed Oregon State. And then they have the last seed of the tournament, Chico State. Never even heard of that school. And I'm a very avid NCAA fan. So the fact that I never heard of Chico State is telling here. But what's cool is you get to see how the Northwest teams play against each other. There's a lot of clumping of teams. Right now, BYU's earned a bid for them. Washington sitting at 20, Utah State 30, Oregon State 31, and Victoria 33. The big game, of course, for UVic is going to be the matchup against Oregon State. They lost them 12-11 in the final game at Stanford to finish 6th. And then I think they have an easy matchup against a school I've never heard of. Okay. If you finish first, there's going to be some. If you finish first, you don't have to crossover. Oh, excuse me. You do crossover, but you play the number 1 teams. Okay. So you're kind of in the bracket. If you finish second and third, you play a pre-quarters to get in. So if things go to seed, UBC potentially would play Utah, who they beat at SBI, or Western Washington, another regional rival matchup. So that's what could happen. They would actually have to play first the winner of Pool C, which currently right now would be Utah State. So that is what could happen. And then after that, there's some little crossover, crossover madness, we could say. So let's just say UBC were to win, okay? They win all their games. They enter the bracket as a 1 seed. So they would play P2, which is Utah, or Utah defeating who I think is going to come third, Gonzaga. I didn't even know Gonzaga had an ultimate team. So that's where UBC could lie. Western Washington could be in there if they defeat Utah State. They would end up in the seeding crossover. So lots going on there with UBC. That's if everything goes to seed for them. For UVic, if they weren't able to topple down Oregon State, let's just say, I think they can do it, but let's just say they don't. They would play P3 of Pool B here. So that would be Washington State. Definitely heard of them. And then they would play the winner of a crossover matchup, Pool E G2. So the schedule is not your traditional sched. You got to kind of look it over because they have these like 1-1 crossovers. So that 1-1 crossover would be between Pool B. So that's Washington and then Oregon State. So potentially they could play Oregon State again. But let's just say Washington were to win. I think that's a great matchup for UVic to be able to flex their chops against a team that's, I commentated Washington last year. They're a team that's been to the Nationals. So I think that'd be kind of cool for them to get that experience. And that is a Northwest Challenge, men's. Smaller tournament in terms of maybe its notoriety compared to, like I said, the women's tournament. But still a fun competition out here. The women's tournament had 13 teams, I guess. They had, an interesting format. So one more team makes it a little bit bigger. But I know they've had match play. Now it's kind of bracket. And now definitely it's bracket here. Remember, we had talked about last week how there were some complaints. So it does happen, okay? But right now, UBC sitting first. UVic sitting 5th. Perhaps they could meet. There is a scenario where they would meet. I've kind of worked it out. If they were to win their pool, there's a scenario, okay? I'm not going to work through every single one that could happen, but it'd be cool to see more Canadian teams out in the finals or even semis of a U.S. tournament. Kind of fun to watch. So keep an eye out for that. And once again, if you want to find out what's happening, you can always go check out Ulti-World Live on the Twitters. Okay, they'll tell you what's going on. I'm actually going to check right now if it's being streamed. I don't know that offhand, so I'm just going to double check and see if it's here on our video editing schedule. Right now, I don't see Northwest Challenge men's on this list. So you'll have to, I guess, just check out Twitter and you'll find out, okay? So that's Northwest Challenge men's. We're going to move on here. C4UC happening. There was a live draw, okay? Live draw was fun. Badge had his daughter take part in it. It was pretty entertaining. You can skim through it if you just want to see where the teams end up. But there were 4 pots. So pot 1 had Ontario Yum, the number 1 seed out of Ontario. Black Pearl out of Quebec. I don't know if this is a play on pony, but PO, Pride of Nova Scotia. It's got to be. PONS, love it. And Red Tail out of Alberta, pot 1. 2 Ontario teams make up pot 2. Wax On, Wax Off, no name. And then the number 1 team out of Manitoba North. Looks like a Winnipeg squad. See some familiar faces there. And then Nomo, definitely a familiar team name for those who follow the 4 circuit. I'm going to say I think they've been in finals. Maybe they even won the whole thing. But I know they've been out in the 4 circuit many a time. And they have some people that play for Traffic who are like out of towners. So Terry Whitehead, Sarah Norton, for example. And they're going to be on this Nomo squad. So pretty exciting. Don't sleep on this Nova Scotia 2 team, Woodstruck, okay? You got WWD and Bubs, 2 Ontario teams, and then your Newfoundland, Bad Temperament making up the pot 3. And then 2 more. You guys get sick of hearing all these Ontario teams out here, but 2 more Ontario teams for you. Melton, Tetraphobia. Tetraphobia gained the last bid. They're going to be joined by the Fat Pumas out of Calgary, the 3rd team out of Alberta, along with Experience Regina, Saskatchewan. I love this, by the way, that Saskatchewan is sending a team out here to play this tournament. You got to love it, okay? So Pool A has Pride of Nova Scotia. They get the 1 seed by random draw. From the pot 2, they get Wax On, Wax Off. That's going to be fun. Then WWD and Experience Regina. Pool 2, or Pool B, I should say. Yum has the top spot. Then they get Nomo out here. That's tough. That's tough for both teams having to draw each other in pool play. But hey, you get Forged by the Fire when you have these random draws. It's not like it'd be hard to perfectly seed it, is all I'm saying. So you get these random draws. That's kind of fun. Bad Temperament gets the 3rd spot. And Melt actually gets dropped into this pool because they want to avoid 3 Ontario teams in Pool A. So that's where Melt ends up. Black Pearl. Okay, this team, the only Quebec team, and I said this before, found it very curious that there weren't more Quebec teams going. This team finished, by what I saw, 14th at Mars Attack. So they weren't kind of one of the top teams finishing. They do get a high spot. You know, they did go through the gauntlet. Are they better than these Ontario teams? I don't know. I wasn't at these 4s tournaments, so kind of previewing is based off of who you know on the teams, right? They get No Name out of Ontario, Woodstruck, and Fat Pumas. Fat Pumas having to draw that spot because they need to avoid too many regional matchups. There's a whole formula out here, okay? Red Tails, Pool D, you get North, so I think that's the thing they want to avoid. So Fat Puma's avoiding Pool D here because then you would have like so many prairie teams. Bubs and Tetraphobia. Okay. Those are your pools. 1st seed makes quarters. 2-3 go to the crossovers. And, you know, our resident fact checker, our schedule maker, we love that he sends the schedule beforehand. There's like a Huckin version of this schedule that allows me to like, all right, well, anyone, but it's for me. So I plug in who I think is going to win each pool, and then it spits out what's going to happen. So based on what I think is going to happen, I have Nomo making it out of pre-quarters. So first I'm going to go over, because let's go over pre-quarters, then we're going to go quarters. So I have Nomo, Black Pearl not winning their pool. So I know they're going to come after me, but I got No Name out here winning that pool, okay? So that's I'm feeling confident. Maybe some might say potential Ontario bias here, but I think I know the names on that team list, so I'm going to go with them and not go with Black Pearl, unfortunately. So I know it's going to be tough to hear because I know I believe one of them is a big fan of the podcast. And so I know I'll probably hear about it later. But based on what I see from this no-name team, they added Phil Turner somehow. I'm not sure how that happened because I know he was on I guess if the team didn't qualify. But they have a lot of Sixers players repping their the women matching side, and I think that's going to carry them through here. Okay. And the other pre-quarters, I have Wax On, Wax Off, and Redtail making it out, which means I don't have Redtail winning their pool. I actually have North out of Manitoba winning their pool. Okay, that's out of pool D. So your quarters matchups based on this whole, plugging in the formulas here. So Pride of Nova Scotia, they win their pool. I hate to do this to a friend of the podcast, part-time co-host Kelsey Hayden, but I got Nomo taking the dub in a big upset. It's going to be Universe or something like that. Nomo's going to take it, okay? That's what I predict. North, who just won their pool, as I mentioned, out of Pool D. That roster has some players I recognize. There's a little PBHG action out here. Some Winnipeg people, of course. It's a team from there. I have them taking on Black Pearl, but I got Black Pearl. Black Pearl, I got you winning, okay? I got you coming through the gauntlet to win that one, okay? Yum gets to take on, Wax Off in a regional rematch. Wax Off, actually, their roster has changed quite a bit from the regional tournament. So if you look on the C4UC website, you'll see that their roster has changed quite a bit, or a little bit. They've added Jeff Bevan, Adam Turcotte, and you won't see certain players on the team. So I'm going to leave it at that. You're going to see certain players that were on the regional roster that aren't there right now. Okay? I have Yum winning that one. I think their Ontario Championship is going to carry them through that experience, Such a long season, right? I'm being sarcastic there. But anyways, Redtail wins over No Name, and that sets up semis of Yum, Redtail, Nomo, and Black Pearl. And I have Nomo and Yum in the final with Yum, maybe hashtag Ontario bias, taking it all. They got a good mix of players. I think they're going to do it. So I have Redtail. I like this Redtail squad too. Giving some love to the Prairies. I have them winning bronze. So that's where you have it. Recognize some of these names from AFC. I believe some remix in there as well. And I think there's a lot of fours out there as part of their training. I think I'm going to predict it. And so I'm going to give that nod. And with all these predictions, this is like kind of shooting like randomly because I haven't seen these teams in full action, especially connectivity wise. So you're kind of just making a guess. So don't take it too personally, but hey, if that fires you up, I'll take it. If that fires you up, I'll take it, okay? All right. Last thing we're going to talk about is juniors. This one I will not predict because a lot of their rosters actually hidden. Might be security reasons. I'm not totally sure. But if it is, that's good too. So even if you're signed in with your account, like Ultimate Central or whatever, you can actually see mostly like the coaches. Like I can see that Dave Whitney Brown, for example, is coaching for Storm. And I can see Jamie Millage is coaching for Ontario West, for example. But the players, not so much. So look at geographic diversity out here. We got the Prime Penguins out of Vancouver, BC. Love that. You got Canyon as well out of North Vancouver, British Columbia, making their way down. Team Manitoba out of Winnipeg. Dean Wright, absolute legend. Got a lot of people into Frisbee, and he is listed as a coach along with Caitlin Cho. And then you have PULL out of a city in Quebec that I cannot say. So I'm going to leave it at that. You got OJ Cup, which is out of Ottawa. A lot of the coaches, basically the coaches who coach Wicked, putting out a team there. Ontario West was told that team was made in 72 hours or something like that. So Durham, Toronto, I guess, mix. And then Kingston Ultimate, love that. They answered the call. Ultimate Canada said, we need another team. They stepped to the plate. don't know how much noise they're going to make, but we love that they made it an even 8-team tournament, and it gives those players a lot of experience, which is also great. And as I mentioned this team already, but Newfoundland Storm out here as well. If I have to predict one team that I think is going to win, based on just what I know of notoriety's sake, I'm going to go on a limb and say the Prime Penguins. I know I said I'm going to do full predictions, but I'm going to say watch out for Prime Penguins. I'll be surprised if they don't at least make the final. Okay, with the coaching that they have, but also like the players that they have on this squad. I mean, they're carrying only 3 male matching players, so maybe they'll get tired. But Alex Lamb, Victoria Lamb out here coaching, and I think they're gonna make some noise. Okay, and they had that experience of playing that tournament earlier that I mentioned a few episodes ago. So they did play outdoors, and now they're gonna show their stuff in the fours. I don't know how big fours is in Vancouver though. From what I've been told, it's not that much. So it stands to reason that they could have a hard time in fours, but I think the talent will take over. So that wraps up today's episode. Thank you once again for listening, and the guests that came on as well. Find us on socials as always. Hit a like on the YouTube video and all that good stuff, okay? I'm going to be in subs only. It's Commentator's Corner once again. I believe I've talked about preparing for commentating before, but this one I'm going to talk a little bit more about preparing, but also like at a tournament. So kind of like scouting, but how you would do it for commentary, which I guess is kind of similar. But you're just going to have to find out. Be a subscriber. If not, see you next week. We'll have crowned some winners at Northwest Challenge, but also nationally with the C4UC and CJ4UC winners. So we'll talk about that next week and see you then.